Trade between Asia and Europe takes a long time, which means it's also expensive. That's how things were before the Suez Canal was built, which at a certain point became a game changer for global trade. Today, the canal handles about 12% of global trade and 30% of the world's container traffic. This is why more than 1 billion tons of goods pass through this man-made waterway every year. On average, that's 50 ships a day carrying cargo worth anywhere between $3 billion and $9 billion. Right now, the canal is facing problems. Many people probably remember that in 2021, the Ever Given ran aground and blocked the Suez Canal, which became a disaster both for those waiting on goods and those transporting them. It was also a stark reminder that this route is just a very narrow strip of water for Asia-Europe trade. On top of that, the Houthis are now attacking ships in the Red Sea, making it a downright dangerous place to sail because at any moment, any vessel could be hit and destroyed by a missile or some other projectile. You know who can change everything? Iraq, which is currently building its mega project. Yes, this country is ready to turn global trade upside down by creating a new route, one that requires digging up millions of cubic feet of sand on the shore, setting a world construction record, and giving the entire nation a fresh new look. Well, let's get into the details. Actually, the idea of linking Asia and Europe through Iraq has been on many minds for ages. As far back as 1903, the Germans planned to build the Berlin-Baghdad Railway, which would allow them to set up a port on the Persian Gulf coast. There was a lot to build. The planned length of the railway was 994 miles. That's why by the start of World War I, the tracks were still 596 miles away from their intended destination. However, the railway was finally completed in the late 1930s. Sounds like a solid alternative to the Suez Canal, doesn't it? Well, the railway's pretty old, so it needs a major overhaul to meet modern standards. On top of that, some sections aren't even built to handle today's heavy freight traffic properly. That's why the Iraq Development Road Project was born, a plan that aims to serve as a replacement for the Suez Canal, which is struggling with a range of different problems. Right now on the map, we can see a line running through the country. If you thought Iraq was planning to dig a second massive canal, then no, that's not the case. Otherwise, we'd probably be looking at a true construction of the century. According to Iraq's plan, ships will approach the country's shore and unload their goods. After that, the cargo will be transferred to land transport and moved across the country to the Turkish border, where it'll be intercepted and sent on to Europe. Of course, no one plans to dig a canal all the way to the Turkish border, but that doesn't mean the Iraq Development Road got any easier to make. Railway and road routes need to be created because the existing ones probably won't cut it. Yes, the country's railway network is one of the oldest in the Middle East. It has a history of almost 100 years. But that's not really something to brag about. Most of the rails, ties, and infrastructure haven't been changed since they were first used. The situation with the road network is no better. The cause of all this infrastructure decay is the numerous military conflicts that took place in the country, which likely didn't lead to anything beneficial for Iraq, including its roads. The 2003 U.S. invasion, clashes with groups in the early and mid-2010s, these all caused serious destruction. That's why Iraq is currently actively working on building a new 745-mile combined road and rail route for transporting all incoming goods to Turkey. It's worth mentioning that the road needs not only to be updated, but also to be fast. After the Ever Given vessel got stuck in the Suez Canal, the global economy realized just how crucial it is for goods to arrive on schedule, or at least with minimal delays, rather than several days late. For this reason, Iraqis are currently building a railway that will allow goods and passengers to be transported at speeds of up to 186 miles per hour. Additionally, the route will allow stops at key local industrial and energy hubs along with many other cities. According to the project, the Iraqis have planned to build about 15 railway stations along the route, including the cities of Basra, Baghdad, and Mosul. A nice bonus for both Iraq itself and those who will be transporting their goods via this competitor of the Suez Canal. You know how much the Iraqis have planned to spend on building this route? $17 billion. Oh wait, our apologies. The cost could very well soar to $20 billion. Doesn't that seem like a bit too much for a railway and a highway? Sure, there will also be upgrades to the old tracks, but is that really worth $20 billion? Ships need a place to dock to transfer cargo onto rail or road transport. So Iraqis are currently building a port on the Al-Fa Peninsula, and as you can imagine, it's no ordinary port. Any project aiming to compete for a significant share of global trade with the Suez Canal needs to have mega in its name. The mega title is indeed here, as this is a mega project that was conceived a mega long time ago. The first discussions took place right after World War II. The idea was revisited in the 1970s, but it remained just a concept on paper. Serious steps only began in the 1980s. However, those efforts were short-lived because first the Iran-Iraq War broke out, and then in the early 2000s, the U.S. invaded Iraq. And finally, when a somewhat peaceful period arrived in the early 2010s, the project actually moved into the construction phase. How did they choose the location? Well, there weren't many options. Iraq is a pretty big country with a total border length of 2,200 miles, but its coastline is just 36 miles. And it's right here on the Al-Fa Peninsula, the only place in Iraq where you can actually take a swim in the Persian Gulf. So the megaport was named Grand Fa, and we're calling it a megaport for a reason. The project includes plans to build 100 piers. No, this isn't a world record, even if it might seem like one. As usual, the Chinese stand in the way of setting new records. Shanghai's port has a staggering 120 piers. Then there's the Port of Singapore, which doesn't have a clear number of piers listed, but is often mentioned as a rival to Shanghai's. Still, even if global records are out of reach, Iraq's port will be the best of the best in its region. Right now, the Middle East's largest port in terms of berths is Jebel Ali in Dubai, with just 67 docking spots. This means Iraq's megaport will significantly outmatch its competitor and take the top spot in the region. The project also includes artificial land, because what modern construction doesn't? In this case, it'll function as a container terminal encircled by piers for ships to dock. The construction of this Middle Eastern megaport also made room for some innovations. One standout is an advanced piling technique. It includes driving piles into the seabed while simultaneously moving the platform forward. This reduces reliance on waterborne transport and minimizes risks associated with marine conditions. During the construction of Grand Fa, the designers had to figure out how to solve one of the main issues that many ports face: scour. That is, erosion caused by large vessels and narrow waterways. Usually, the solution is simple and well known. Take concrete, use it for cladding, and turn port structures into armored objects that, if they do get exposed to water, won't show the effects for a long time. However, Iraq faces challenges here due to the country's limited quarry supplies, so they decided to tackle the issue differently, using less concrete. Concrete mats. These came to the rescue in the given situation. They're fabric bags that are filled with concrete. Yes, resources are still scarce, but there's information suggesting that the first section of the 1-mile-long quay, which was supposed to need 15 million cubic feet of stone, only required 936,000 cubic feet of material. The difference is significant, not only in terms of how much resource was used, but also because this solution allowed the construction to be completed a full 37 months ahead of schedule. On top of that, concrete mats could be laid at any stage of construction, not just before the quay decks were built, as is the case with regular concrete. Do you think the problems ended there? Not at all. Take a look at this map. The Gulf in general can't be called deep. The average depth is around 115 feet. But near the coast of Iraq and the future megaport, it's much shallower. The maximum depth is 33 feet, and mostly it's around 16 feet. At the same time, Iraq claims that the megaport will be able to accommodate all container ships currently in operation, even the largest ones. For example, there's the container ship Evergreen, which is nearly 1,300 feet long, 193 feet wide, and has a draft of 53 feet. For those who don't know, the draft refers to the depth at which a ship's hull is submerged in water. So Iraq is planning to accommodate container ships that usually sink more than 49 feet into the water. As for the new port, the average depth is 16 feet. It seems like the plan is doomed to fail because no one will even make it to the megaport. Meanwhile, the competitor in the form of the Suez Canal can easily accommodate both the Evergreen and any other vessel with a draft of up to 65 feet, the depth the waterway allows for it. Good thing there are dredging works, which as part of the project will reach massive proportions. A ship like this arrives at the site, then starts scooping up sand from the seabed, collecting it on board, and then transporting it to another location where the sand can be dumped. Pipes and other techniques are also used, but the concept remains the same. Take everything from the seabed and move it elsewhere. In the end, the seabed near the megaport will lose about 5 billion cubic feet of earth, and a turning basin will be created, a channel 1,300 feet wide and 15 miles long leading into the sea. All of this is being done to ensure that the depth near the Iraqi megaport reaches at least 56 feet, the minimum depth required for a port that aims to accommodate any modern container ship. So what's the result? Is it enough to dig out millions of tons of sand to make it work? Well, actually, no. At least this won't work with the port on the Al-Fa Peninsula. The thing is, the peninsula is located in a delta where the Shatt al-Arab River flows into the ocean. Its current constantly carries sediment, which settles over a vast area near the port under construction. As a result, if you dig a large hole here, it will eventually just fill up with this sediment. In short, it would be a pointless work. On top of that, the desert is nearby. This is unpleasant, at least because the port will always be surrounded by sand. But there's even worse news for the Iraqi project. Sandstorms will carry the grains of sand out to sea, so all the dredging work is doubly pointless. That's why the designers concluded that they needed to protect the port from all the sediment from the river and the desert dust. And that's how the breakwater came into being. Here it is, seen from space. This line extending from the shore. It's designed to protect the port from the sand-colored patch that comes out of the river. Let's take a closer look. This breakwater took 8 years to build, used 5 million tons of stone, and cost $1 billion. However, there wasn't enough stone, so 100,000 core lock units were used in the construction of the protective barrier. The units that are specifically designed to dissipate wave energy. Half of the total cost of the entire project went into these units, $591 million. The costs were enormous, but in the end, the result is a structure that'll protect the port from both sand and waves, as it's rightly called a breakwater. Iraq can also now find one of its landmarks in the Guinness World Records. It's the longest breakwater on our planet, measuring 9 miles in length. The big project also involved a tunnel. On the other side, there's another port, Qasr, which is supposed to be connected to the future megaport. To make this connection a reality, they made a decision. An underwater tunnel 1.5 miles long was needed. In January of this year, the Iraqi Minister of Transport stated that the lifting of the concrete blocks to a level above sea level and the start of their transportation to the required location would happen very soon. And that's exactly what happened, with other necessary works for the construction of the connecting tunnel currently underway. It's claimed that the tunnel will be completed in 2025. In November 2024, the authorities of Iraq opened the first 5 docks, and everyone saw that the port was truly preparing to receive ships. The first vessels had already docked. The Prime Minister stated that the first phase will be fully completed in 2025. In addition to the opening of 5 piers, a 38-mile road will be ready. It'll connect the port to the city of Qasr. Also in 2025, they plan to lay the final stone for the underwater tunnel. The navigational channel will be ready and the container yard will be operational. In other words, the mega project will effectively be able to participate in international trade. Next, there's more to come. According to the plan, in the second phase, industrial facilities will be built near the port, a steel mill, and an oil refinery. These will allow Iraq to immediately transfer its products for shipment to Europe. Plus, the number of docks will be increased to 30. Then the third stage will be implemented. It's planned to expand the nearby city of Al-Fa with housing, mosques, and a shopping center. At the same time, the number of docks will reach its maximum value of 100. However, this won't happen soon. Probably around 2045, if we consider the initial forecasts and the inevitable delays due to the problems that will surely surround the project. Now let's imagine what Iraq will gain once the project is finally completed. Even with the 5 docks already open, the Iraq Development Road will be able to handle 3.5 million cargo containers per year. By 2028, the port will be able to process about 36 million tons of containerized cargo. By 2038, the port will be handling 7.5 million containers and 33 million tons of dry bulk cargo compared to 22 million tons in 2028. While the figures may seem solid, the Suez Canal is still unmatched. In 2021, around 1.27 billion tons of cargo passed through it, and this was during a crisis year when a blockage occurred due to the Ever Given container ship. In 2022, the figure reached 1.4 billion tons. There's no specific data for 2023 yet, but there is information that a record number of transit ships passed through the Egyptian Canal. This most likely indicates that more cargo passed through as well. Yes, due to geopolitical issues with the Houthis, traffic through the Suez Canal decreased by 50% in 2024, but it's still far more than what Iraq plans to handle. The route to Europe via the Road of Development may be 15 days shorter, which is definitely appealing, but who says there won't be problems like the ones with the Suez competitor? No ship will get stuck and block the entire path because there's no waterway at all. But if there's a traffic jam on the railway or road, you can just clear the cause and keep the cargo moving. Much easier than dealing with a ship that weighs thousands of tons. But in Iraq, there are groups whose clear goal will be to hinder movement. Literally the same thing as in the Suez Canal. In the end, the new transport route, which seemed like the perfect replacement for the Suez Canal, isn't all that perfect. It's not great for world trade, but Iraq will still be happy about it. First of all, it's claimed that after the full opening, the Iraq Road of Development, along with the port, will create at least 100,000 jobs, and eventually their number will rise to 250,000. Is this useful for Iraq or not? In 2023, the unemployment rate in this country was at 15.5%, so the answer is pretty obvious. And second, money. As of September 2024, the monthly income of the Suez Canal in Egypt reached 15.5 billion Egyptian pounds, or over $303 million US. In 2020, the canal brought Egypt $5.61 billion. That's $15 million a day. In 2021, the canal's income reached $6.3 billion, and by 2023, it was already $9.4 billion. Egypt earns all this money through transit fees. They will be introduced on the Iraq Development Road as well, but due to the lower capacity, the amount of money the country will receive is estimated to be more modest, $4 billion per year. But all of this is just speculation. For now, the only thing that can be said for sure is that the Iraq Development Road, along with its megaport, will attract global attention to the country, and then there will be increased investments and all the other things that the Middle Eastern country urgently needs right now.